It's not about number. It's about the people who are coming in. I believe that everybody who comes into this country should come in through a legal mechanism, and that the United States ought to be able to select the people who are coming in, who are the best, brightest, and most useful to the American population, because that is the prerogative of any nation.
So do you think that the way that we do allow people in through our legalization process, especially with how much egregious obstacles people have to go through, might incentivize people to come through non-legal means?
I mean,
On average, it takes about 10 years for somebody to gain citizenship in this country. And if somebody is fleeing political persecution, I really find it interesting how conservatives always like to talk about the response to certain behaviors instead of what the root cause is. When oftentimes United States foreign policy is what creates the destabilization of countries, which is why people try to come to places where they can't get economic benefit. Your employee, Matt Walsh, was kind of schooled on this with Ryan Grimm, where he talked about specifically Haitian policy, where the government of Haiti has been destabilized over and over again by Western imperial nations. So that those citizens are trying to flee something with political persecution.
I mean, is it your contention that anytime there's a destabilized nation across the world, even if the United States had a hand in it, then we then have a moral obligation to take in every citizen of that country who wishes to flee?
No, I think that's a huge straw man. I'm not saying that every single person from a destabilized country needs to take refuge in the United States, but I think it's important to add that context so you can understand why people are coming here.
That's a case for a different foreign policy. That's not a case for an immigration policy.
The idea is people are coming in here to mooch off of our emergency rooms or mooch off of our social services, which is just not true at all.
Yeah, I don't know. I might actually be willing to bite the bullet there. I think that if you like the way that Ben was putting that, it's like, oh, it's your contention that even if the United States did destabilize the shit out of some foreign country, that we should just therefore let people come in there. It's like, I don't know, man. I think if you, I think if you burn down your neighbor's house, the least you can do is let them stay in your guest room for a while.
Yeah. He didn't want to go as far as that, but maybe rhetorically at the moment.
Yeah, and I would just also say, it's like, okay, you can say, oh, well, that's a case for not burning down your neighbor's house, not a case for letting them stay in the guest room. It's like, well, I mean, I get what you're saying. It would have been better not to burn down their house in the first place, but if that's already happened past tense, it does indeed sound like a case for letting them stay in your guest room. Like, Well,
also, he's not going to agree to really a changed foreign policy, is he?
Well, that's also funny, right? Because it's like he was like, "Oh, that sounds like a case for a changed foreign policy." It's like, well, okay. First of all, yeah, let's explore that, right? Like, do you actually want to change foreign policy? If so, in what ways? But then, certainly Ben, way back in the day, right? Like when he was first starting out, he was a big booster of the Iraq War. Obviously to this day, is a big booster of U.S. support for Israel. So I'm, generally speaking, I think he's a big supporter of the like U.S. involvement in Ukraine. I mean, I think, that thing that me and Kuba watched of his a long time ago, I think he was talking about that. Like, I generally don't see a lot of evidence that, he wants the U.S. to scale back its role in the world. But like, also, even if he did, it's like, yes, definitely going forward, let's go forth and burn down fewer houses. But like, that doesn't mean that we don't owe anything to the people who lived in the houses we already burned down.
Yeah. It is interesting because I think that, I think part of why Ben's not doing as well is he's not picking on like random college students whose voices are already like trembling with nervousness as they go up to, and he has the mic and they don't, the normal dunks on. I think these people are probably I think they're probably influencers. These people, I think they're probably.
Who are these people he's arguing with here?
I believe they're college students because I know that's the Matt Walsh one.
Is that guy a college student? I mean, he looks good, but he's. I mean, hey, you could be whatever age in college. I don't want to be normative about this, but he was looking solidly 29 or 30. But maybe he's a grad student.
Maybe he's had a hard life. We don't know his childhood.
Or maybe he's had a great life and just decided to postpone his degree.
Maybe he just doesn't moisturize.
Let me look it up. It's okay. This video. Oh no, they're just Kamala Harris voters. That's how they're just.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Oh, and then each person, their social media is linked. So that's interesting. I'm guessing I don't think they're like randomly picked Kamala Harris voters is my guess. But I don't know. But no, they're definitely not all like famous like political influencers.
Yeah, but these do seem to be much more confident than the college students that he usually debates.
Yeah. Usually they're like, what did you say that you're not?
Yeah, because it's somebody like who's plucking up their nerve to ask a question at a public event for the first time in their lives, right? Like,
I'm not trying to make fun of them. I feel bad for them. I get it. I would be
sure.
Like, I mean, it's also like a crazy hostile environment
to those kids, but like, I just think it's like, the deck is very, very stacked against them, right? Like, it's like, you're pretty much like those kids are almost always going to look bad, right? Because they have, like, they're often going to be really nervous. They're not going to have the quick comebacks just because they're not, like Ben Shapiro has more or less been doing this professionally since he was younger than they are in many cases. And so he's obviously going to be faster on his feet than they are. That means nothing, right? And he's good at sounding confident. If anything, that's his most sellable skill.
And then when someone sounds confident, he quickly pivots. When he tells that he can't just dunk on them easily, he starts asking them to clarify their point and hemming and hawing and like. Like when he talked to Anna, he was respectful. He's just not when he's against someone who's at all competent. He doesn't really try to go for the kill from what I've seen because he.
Yeah, I mean, didn't he write a book about like debating, and it's all about like the optics of debating as opposed to like actual advice.
Like 11, I'm trying to remember if he actually said rules because I feel like I might just be mixing him up with Jordan Peterson's
rules for debating. Number 1, get out of bed. Number 2, make that bed.
In the background. But it was something called, it was like 11 ways, maybe.
Let the dragon out.
There were definitely 11 points, which I remember because it was weird because it was like 11 is such a funny number for that. But yeah, it was like the full title definitely included the phrases how to debate leftists and destroy them.
Oh, right? Yeah, which is not really. I was thinking the way that this is set up, it's like when a chess grandmaster has a simultaneous with like. But it'd be hilarious if like imagine like a chess grandmaster did that and they just like won like 50% of the matches and like lost. You know what I mean? It's just like okay, I guess. Or like lost most of them, that's like, hey, I did pretty good. I actually won 30%. You try competing against 25 people at the same time. It's like, okay, well, it can be kind of besides the point at that point. Then at that point, maybe they could just debate one person. Because like, it's the setup of this show is that he's this like, and I don't say this intentionally, but this master debater, but it doesn't really seem like there's that, like he's coming across that way. So it's a breath of fresh air. Unfortunately, Ben Shapiro getting dunked on doesn't really add much more to the world in terms of, let's say like conquering economic inequality or actually improving our broken foreign policy. But it does provide a little bit of schadenfreude. It's kind of the best we could hope for these days, I think.
By the way, rules is actually in the title. It's how to debate leftists and destroy them. 11 rules for winning the argument.
There we go. Yeah, and that is, I believe, a few years before it's called Rules for Life. So yeah.
I wonder if Jordan read that book before debating Zizek, for example.
I don't think so. I mean, I unfortunately have read that book, and it's. I will say, like, look, it's definitely a weird fit with the idea that Shapiro is this like logic machine, is whatever the New York Times once called him, the cool kids philosopher. But because like almost all of it is about rhetorical positioning, and almost none of it is actually about the substance of arguments. But that said, I do think Peterson probably would have at least rhetorically done better if he'd read the book, just before he did that.
Or before he talked to Dawkins.
I mean, I think both Charlie Kirk and Ben Shapiro, like people like that, would provide a lot of really good advice for self-presentation, and especially Shapiro. Kirk, I don't know, but definitely marketing, right? Like both. Yeah. I think if you're looking how to market yourself, I think both of them would actually have a lot of good advice, right? What was it? It was Matt McManus, I think, was talking about how in Charlie Kirk's book, that was like probably the only like well done, interesting part, right? It was when he was actually when Kirk was talking about his like concepts for marketing, right? And that's not surprising. That's not surprising to me, because that's ultimately, I mean, I think the system is maybe stacked to rise up people who are like a little bit mediocre on the right, but like there has to be someone who rises out of that group, and the people who do are probably just the best at giving a certain image and self-promoting and all those kinds of things, right? Because Ben Shapiro was amazing at formulating this image of him, which I think is very, very wrong. It's not reflected in the reality.
This is kind of this is actually a little argument that at the New York live show, if you remember, I got into with Sam Seither. That because Sam's claim was kind of that, oh well, look, so much money is being poured into these guys that it's like actually it's not that impressive at all, right? That they managed to get the followings they do, and my claim is like, no, look, it is true, of course, like lots of money is being poured into them, but the premise is absolutely right, but like I think that somebody like Ben Shapiro actually does have relevant, rhetorical skills that like make him able to do far better in that role than most people would be able to, right? I mean,
more than Kirk, I shouldn't lump them together, to be honest.
No, much more than Charlie Kirk. I mean, Charlie Kirk is good at sounding smooth and confident, right? He's better than most people would be at that, but also I know from experience. I mean, look, I've never debated Ben Shapiro, and I think probably never will, because I think if you wanted that to happen, that would have long ago happened. And it's not like he's I don't believe that he's unaware on Joe Rogan, right? We had that whole exchange, right? Where I was like, hey, if Ben Shapiro ever want to come on my show to argue about this stuff, I would totally have him. And, Rogan was like, oh, yeah, no, I'm sure he would, right? I don't believe that he's unaware that the offer is out there. I believe that he's just decided that to take a pass on that. But I have debated Charlie Kirk, and Charlie Kirk is not anything like as quick on his feet as Shapiro certainly seems to be in all the clips I've seen. That, I mean, that's the whole thing about, like, really that was the pleasure of debating Charlie Kirk, that like I kind of spent, the day before, in the hotel room in Phoenix, I'd like kind of spent the day like trying to come up with all the stuff that I thought that Charlie Kirk might bring up in the debate, and sort of, like quick kind of 1 minute responses to it. And it was just beautiful how many of those exact points he hit, and and how much you could see him coming, right? It's like, he brings up Norway. It's like, all right, it's either going to be the oil or the immigration, which is it, And so, and I think that, I think if it were Ben Shapiro, credit where credit's due, I think Shapiro probably would have like had more to say in defense of some of those talking points than Charlie Kirk did, right? Like, I think a lot of times he like engaged about it a little bit, then he just kind of moved on to the next thing.
Yeah. Because you didn't even have to have me and Jake bust into Turning Points USA and steal his book of talking points for you to compare, like Mission Impossible or something,
Yeah, which he was literally holding on his lap, right? Yes. Like that binder with the glossy Turning Points USA cover on it, that was like with all the like the stats and quotes and stuff, like could not have more obviously screamed prepared by staff. You have been watching free public content from Give Them an Argument. To access every single episode of the show, the main show on Monday nights, all of the streams, all of the debate breakdowns, all of the patron-exclusive post-games on Monday nights, all of the patron-exclusive bonus episodes every week, and much, much more, go to patreon.com/Ben Burgis. I cannot resist ending this with, don't be foolish.